Baki Hanma is a 13-year-old boy who is about to fight against 100 thugs. The reason for this is that his father, Yujiro Hanma, is the strongest man on Earth, and his son's task is to become just as strong as his father, no matter what. His mother, Emi Akazawa, who is deeply in love with Yujiro, helps him in this endeavor. She doesn't feel any love for Baki, but only helps him with his training to make him stronger. It was she who paid these thugs to fight against Baki. Although he is strong, he was only able to defeat 37 of them. By the way, Kurigawa watched this fight. Roughly speaking, he is Emi's henchman. He was the one who organized this brawl. He also witnessed the head of one of the mafia groups preparing to fight Baki in the future. This mafia boss is called Hanayama, and at the age of 15, he is already considered one of the strongest in the city. He easily defeats every opponent, and only Baki's father is considered stronger than him. As this bothers the young mafia boss, he agrees to fight Baki in order to then fight his father. Baki trains in a special laboratory, but realizing that such training will not make him as strong as his father, he decides to destroy everything there and find a new way to become stronger. While he was thinking about this, he encounters professional boxer Yuri Tchaikovsky in the park, who is the absolute champion in his weight class and has to travel to different places just to find a sparring partner who is not afraid to fight him. Baki decides to challenge him and fight, but of course, he is knocked out with a single blow. This was his first defeat, after which he runs home in tears. Baki decides that he needs to follow in his father's footsteps, so he goes to the mountains. There he meets Ando, a longtime friend of the Hanma family. He used to train here with Yujiro, who also came to these mountains to become stronger. Baki tells him that he came here to defeat Yashizaru, a 3-meter demon who is considered the king of this mountain. By the way, Yujiro killed one of them. Baki confronts this monster, but starts to feel intense fear. Ando comes to his aid, but Yashizaru afflicts him with very serious injuries, and only fire helps to drive away this monster. Due to the injury, an ambulance had to be called, which took Ando to the hospital by helicopter. Baki realizes that he needs to overcome himself and cross a certain limit that restricts a person's strength, and for this, he decides to jump off a cliff. In flight, he feels as if everything has slowed down, allowing him to dodge the rocks and safely land in the water. Becoming stronger, he heads back to Yashizaru and during the battle even manages to blind him. They fought fiercely and Baki received serious injuries. Ando came to his aid, who was discharged from the hospital and wanted to kill the monster with a gun, but Baki stopped him. He said that both he and the monster were seriously injured, but still continued to fight. They respect each other as opponents, and therefore no one should interfere in their battle. Baki still manages to defeat Yashizaru, and after being defeated, the monster simply leaves. He does not feel any pleasure from this victory because Baki severely injured the monster and even blinded him, although Yashizaru was just defending himself. Feeling guilty, he goes to the monster's lair. There he apologizes to him and gives him a gift, the head of his wife, whom Yujiro killed once. In return, he gives him the fang that he lost during the fight with Baki. After that, he goes to his mother's house, who shows him the recent fight of Tchaikovsky for the middleweight championship. By the way, she tried to bribe him with 100 million yen to fight her son, but Tchaikovsky is not interested in money, so he refused. After the victory, he wanted to win in the heavyweight category as well. For this, he gained 15 kilograms in 2 months, but Baki didn't like it. He said that the old Tchaikovsky was much faster and more dangerous. He went to the gym where Yuri trains and said that he considers boxing an imperfect sport and certainly not a martial art. But despite this, he respects Tchaikovsky very much and will support him until the end. These words deeply offended Yuri and the others in the gym. They tried to show Baki how strong the boxer is by hitting the punching bag, but with one blow, Baki tore it apart, showing that at the age of 13, he is stronger than anyone else in the gym. The day of Tchaikovsky's fight for the heavyweight title arrives, but before entering the ring, his team is intercepted by Hanayama. They start fighting, but the 15-year-old mafia boss grabs Tchaikovsky's hand and crushes his joints, causing tendons and veins to burst. However, despite such injuries, Tchaikovsky continues to fight. The thing is, he is a warrior, and they are expected to fight until the end. But of course, Hanayama eventually finishes him off, which leads to Tchaikovsky being taken to the hospital. Baki knew about this and went to avenge the boxer, not even noticing the guards along the way. Baki knocks him down with the first blow, something that no one has been able to do to Hanayama before. The police, who arrived in response to a call, interrupted their fight. Baki says that he will be ready to fight him anytime. Such audacity infuriates Hanayama, and he turns his car into a pile of metal. Then Baki visits Tchaikovsky in the hospital. He tells him that he recently met with Hanayama, and though his legs were trembling with fear, he looks forward to their next meeting. Baki realizes that the mafia boss may attack him at any moment, and that's exactly what Hanayama does at the shopping center. Taking advantage of the element of surprise, he manages to beat Baki, and at one point even throws him out of the window to kill him. But somehow, grabbing onto a rope, Baki climbs back up and retaliates against Hanayama, after which Hanayama takes off all his clothes and shows everyone his tattoo on his back, which all men in his clan get in memory of a wandering man who protected his ancestor. They fought on equal terms, exchanging powerful blows and techniques. When it seemed that one of them had won, the other would stand up and continue the battle. For a moment, it seemed to Baki that he had won. After this blow, when everyone thought it was over, Hanayama fell to the floor without strength. But at that moment, Baki gathered his last strength and limped to the mafia boss. They acknowledged each other and thanked each other for the fight, but suddenly Yujiro arrived, with whom Hanayama had dreamed of fighting. However, it turned out that the difference in strength was too great. Yujiro easily dealt with Hanayama even though he was tired after the fight with Baki, but he didn't stand a chance anyway. Yujiro is the most strong man, and then with a single slap, his father puts Baki to sleep and goes to Akazawa, scolding her for not being able to make Baki a great fighter in these 3 years. He also added that he wants to test and challenge his son himself. To add motivation, he killed Yashizaru, whom Baki respected so much. He brought him the head of this monster and said that he would come in a month to fight him, and Yujiro wants there to be maximum motivation for this fight, because if he disappoints his father, he will deal with him as well. Baki eats Yashizaru's teeth and then meets Stridum, Yujiro's friend. He tells Baki that if he doesn't want to be destroyed by his father, he needs to train. Stridum tells him about a group of mercenaries on Hokkaido who see everything as a battlefield, and to become stronger, Baki must defeat them. However, unknowingly, Stridum sent him on a suicidal mission. It turns out that among these mercenaries there is a certain Gaia, who is considered the god of war, and only Yujiro can match him in strength. After landing with a parachute, the mercenaries immediately capture him, but decide not to kill him. They tie him up and leave him by a tree. After freeing himself, Baki starts catching them one by one and fighting them, while learning something new from each fighter. He defeats all of them, but suddenly the weakest of the mercenaries starts screaming wildly. It turns out that he has 2 personalities. The first is Namura, the personality of an ordinary soldier, and the second is the god of war, which was revealed to him after a certain incident. During one of the operations, he was captured and sentenced to execution. When dozens of soldiers aimed their guns at him, a strong adrenaline rush began in him. Gaia was not killed because his comrades arrived in time, but after that, all his hair fell out. In addition, he learned to control the adrenaline rush, which keeps his body in perfect shape, even though he doesn't train. They started fighting, but Baki couldn't land a single blow. It was because, during an adrenaline rush, Gaia starts reading all of the opponent's actions. Gaia beats him up, delivering heavy blows, and after throwing him into the river, everyone thought Baki was dead. But thanks to endorphins, he regains consciousness. They start fighting again, but their fight is interrupted by Gaia. He scolds Baki for pushing his body so hard. He says his arms and legs don't listen to him because he never cared about them. After that, Gaia plans to finish him off, but Baki's body starts fighting on its own. Due to numerous training sessions, his instincts have reached perfection. And thanks to that, he defeats Gaia, crushing his carotid artery and making him lose consciousness. When Gaia wakes up, he admits his defeat and invites Baki to eat as a sign of their friendship. News of their battle reaches Baki's father, who says that Baki defeated the god of war himself, someone who could only be compared to Yujiro, to which Yujiro replies that Gaia is weak and cannot be compared to him. Yujiro heads to the Prime Minister, informing him in advance that he plans to kill him. There, he encounters dozens of armed soldiers, but he simply doesn't notice them. After reaching the Prime Minister, he says he has a poor guard and then escapes through the window. Yujiro meets Akazawa, who tries to get close to him, but he rejects her and adds that if Baki disappoints him, he will wipe his feet on Akazawa. Baki's disappointed mother comes to him and starts hitting him for not becoming as strong as his father at the age of 13. He asks her if she will love him if he can defeat Yujiro, but she just calls him an idiot, bites him, and runs away. Desperate, Baki encounters 3 thugs who start beating him up, but at that moment, Hanayama comes to his aid. He supports him and says that he even envies him because his mother recently died. She had cancer and couldn't even bite her son, no matter how much she wanted to. After the conversation, Baki starts preparing for the fight that is supposed to take place at midnight, and before that, he decides to warm up for 12 hours. Tchaikovsky and Hanayama help him with that, coming to support Baki in his battle against his father. They start sparring, but during this time, Baki becomes much stronger and effortlessly defeats the head of the mafia and the boxing champion. Mercenaries also come to him, but without their leader, Gaia, as he was given a different mission. He was supposed to teach Yujiro a lesson for what he did to the Prime Minister, but as expected, he was brutally beaten. Yujiro arrives at the battlefield, accompanied by Akazawa. Baki starts hitting his father with all his might, but instead of fighting back, Yujiro approaches those who came to support Baki. He thanks them for making his son a strong man. He also adds that Akazawa didn't disappoint him, and Baki lived up to his expectations. After that, he decides to fight his son, but after 2 blows, Baki loses consciousness. The fight seems to be over, but Yujiro decides to finish him off and starts beating his unconscious body. A bad mother, isn't she? Perhaps, but even she has feelings. She decides to stand up for her son, but Yujiro doesn't appreciate it and fatally embraces her. He doesn't stop there and starts beating everyone who is on the battlefield. After losing his mother, Baki decides that he must become strong enough to defeat father barehanded, no matter what. And for that, he leaves Japan for 2 years to come back even stronger. During this time, he spends his time in Brazil, defeating one fighter after another. There he hears that there are underground fights in Tokyo where the strongest fighters from all over the world gather. But to get there, he needs to meet the organizer of these fights. Of course, they knew who Baki was and whose son he was, so they really wanted him to compete. Baki rented a room from a woman whose husband also participated in underground fights. And after one of the fights, he came home and died with a smile on his face. She also has a daughter, Kazui, who goes to school with Baki, and she has no idea what he does because Baki carefully hides it. And what he hides is that over these 3 years, while he rented a room from this woman, he became the champion of underground fights. We are shown Doppo, a master and the head of the karate school. Tokugawa asks him to invite his best student to the underground fights. He used to study karate at school, but he got bored of it. And he found a job as a bodyguard, but he got bored there too. So he returned to Doppo to find strong opponents. That's why he really wants to fight Baki, who, by the way, is currently fighting Kuso, who is known for his fighting style. The thing is, his body parts are so sharp that he can hit like a knife or sever his opponent's nerves, and that's exactly what he did to Baki, disabling his right arm. But despite such an injury, Baki continued to fight valiantly, and then Kuso severed the nerve responsible for his right eye's vision. Of course, after that, Baki started taking hard hits, but when Kuso decided to do the same to his left eye, Baki caught him in a powerful hold and threatened to break his arm if Kuso didn't surrender. But he didn't want to lose like that, so he asked Baki to break his arm. To not ruin his opponent's career, Baki decides to knock him out, thus winning the match. Nobody at school knows about Baki's exploits, so the thugs start extorting money from him. But Kozue stands up for him, although it didn't help, and they had to run away. In the evening, when she was in the park with her friend, those thugs found her. They wanted her to pay with herself for interfering with their plan to extort money from Baki. But with the help of her friend, Baki finds them and saves Kozue by breaking all their wrists. Baki is the champion, and many fighters want to fight him. But his next opponent is determined by Tokugawa, so some of them decide to fight each other for the right to fight Baki. But at that moment, Toba comes to them and throws them all around like children. By the way, he is Baki's next opponent. Toba has been practicing wrestling for 30 years, and the fight with Baki was supposed to be his last. That's why he wanted to defeat him because, in his words, a wrestler cannot lose outside the ring. 96 kilograms. Toba started tossing Baki around like a child, to which Baki responded with precise strikes and knocked Toba to the ground. But he got up and continued the fight using wrestling techniques, and to win, he planned to use his signature move. But the problem is that years take their toll. Toba has a bad knee, and that move would harm him too. When he tried to use it, Baki managed to free himself in the air, and when Toba landed, he injured his knee, making his strikes incredibly weak. Baki started supporting him, and out of respect, he hit Toba's injured knee, showing that he fought him with all his strength. Everyone liked this fight, and the audience congratulated both fighters. At that moment, Yujiro appears in the ring and knocks out Baki with a single touch. Taking advantage of the situation, Doppo comes to him and challenges the giant who once gave him these scars. Baki tried his best to dissuade him from this fight, saying that Yujiro could kill him, and to convince him, he decided to fight him himself. But Doppo showed his skill and assured Baki that he would give it his all. The fight between Yujiro and Doppo will take place before the fight between Baki and Kureha, a doctor who knows anatomy perfectly and has made his body perfect. Before the fight between Yujiro and Doppo, Baki was very nervous, which prevented him from warming up properly and getting into shape. And he's not nervous for no reason, because even though Doppo is a strong opponent who managed to resist the giant, Yujiro is not called the strongest on earth for nothing. He allowed Doppo to strike, but as soon as he saw Baki, he decided not to hold back and killed Doppo, who was immediately taken to the medic, who tried to resuscitate him but couldn't make his heart beat. And then Kureha came to them. He gave a lecture on life to those present and performed direct heart massage, saving Doppo from death. Kureha noticed that Baki panicked because of what was happening, and therefore he won't be able to fight at full strength. But despite this, Kureha intends to kill him. Everyone thought that Baki wasn't warmed up and his muscles were cold, but it turns out that before the fight, one of Kureha's patients came to him. She claimed that the doctor experimented on them. They spent all their money on surgeries, but Kureha didn't try to save them, so they ended up crippled. Of course, it's strange that Baki believed her, but her words greatly motivated him, causing him to start beating the doctor from the very first seconds. But as I said, Kureha has thoroughly studied anatomy, so he was able to deliver such blows to Baki that he lost consciousness. By the way, those fighters who really wanted to fight Baki support him during all the fights. When Baki falls, they sympathize with him, and when he wins, they rejoice for him. Taking advantage of the situation, Yujiro told him that he would defeat him with just one strike. With his strike, he tore his stomach and won. Kureha needed urgent blood transfusion due to the injuries he sustained, and the disabled woman who came to Baki before the fight offered to help him. She stood up from her wheelchair and, approaching the doctor, promised to help him. After winning, Baki decides that he needs to train, and therefore he runs to the mountains for meditation. But what will happen next? We will find out in the second season, the video of which will be released sometime tomorrow. Don't forget to write in the comments what you think about this anime. See you in the next video.